Welcome. We're going to talk about health and performance tonight. We're going to talk about functional food and how it can deliver advantages to you, whoever you are. My name is Jeff Olson. I've been in this conversation for over 20 years. I was a professional athlete a long time ago in a galaxy far, far away. I worked on Wall Street, worked in technology. When I was introduced to this conversation, it made sense. It was sensible. Come to find out, it had intellectual rigor behind it. My intuition was affirmed. And I have been using functional food for the last 22 years every single day. For me, it's been a compounding effect in physiological durability. We're going to talk a little bit about that tonight. But when I was introduced to plant powders, functional food, the Juice Plus company, as a consumer, I was in the technology industry. And what I appreciated about the conversation was I saw it as a think different, disruptive, perhaps, way to bridge that gap in my diet of not getting enough nutrient-dense matter in my body every day. It was an innovation. And there's a couple kinds of innovation. There's innovation that is incremental, that makes new things, that make old things better. And then there's innovation that makes new things, that makes old things obsolete. That's what I saw in this health food around just plants. And as a food technology company, I like to think of the Juice Plus company as that. Here you see some technology in their vertical aeroponic growing systems, their tower gardens. I call it the iPad of gardening. What part don't you get? The beautiful food, or the easy growing and the tasty food. And in a residential sense, my wife and I, we've been growing with these towers for over a decade. They're simple, they're fun, and they're just cool. So when it comes to kind of the who is behind functional food and plant powders, we start out over 25 years ago with some crazy ones. They were health food pioneers, and they said, how do we, sort of put innovation and idea, technology at the service of beautiful food, plant food, and innovate and then get more of that into human bodies around the world, into people around the world, and make a difference, right? Because, nutrition in the end is only as good as your ability to do it every day over time. And where we stumble, bumble, fumble, mumble, and are humbled is in the doing. Nutrition is only as good as your execution. And so as a functional food leader, and what's that? That's just a fancy word for food on purpose. It's sensible, it's simple, it's an easy habit to acquire, and that compounding effect will only have an effect if you do the daily do, right? But within functional food, in looking at categories in functional food, we'll talk a little bit about that. We're best in class in a couple lanes, and one of those lanes is plant powders. The world will know of our company, the world will know of plant powders because of our company. We're a pioneer, as I said, an innovator, leader, best in class around just plants, in this case, plant powders across fruits and vegetables and berries. And where this daily plant food support kicks in is around the daily habit. And when it comes to health and performance, right? Health plus performance. Whether it's eating well, moving well, thinking well, loving well, praying well, we as a company focus on the eat well portion around a daily habit that has a compounding effect over time. And the problem with that daily habit is not many people do that habit or have that habit. And it's the number one daily eating problem in the modern world. And that is eating enough of the most nutrient-dense foods on the planet, fruits and vegetables. And 5 is the recommended minimum for Joe and Jane Dilbert cubicle average person. And I know you guys tuning in here tonight are not average. You want to be optimal and above average and live your A game on the right side of your own bell curve. 90% of us in America fail to get that amount of servings of fruits and vegetables every day in our body. And that's just to prevent disease. When it comes to getting off the couch and doing stuff and having thriving and having vitality beyond just homeostasis, the durable health, I like to talk about durable health, and performance, it's 7 servings a day, 9 servings a day, 12 servings a day. And so if you're like me, when I was introduced to this conversation, I knew I should be doing this stuff, but I wasn't doing it. I wasn't getting it done. I wasn't executing. And these plant powders just made simple sense to me. Now, just take a pause for a second on the what and talk about the how and the why. And, when you go inside us, food kind of just does three things. It's simple. Food at work in us, it builds us and it fuels us. And that's carbohydrates and proteins, the fueling, glycogen and protein amino acids, and the building matter and energy. But these are macro conversations, right? Proteins, carbs, fats, calories. And those are the first two things that food does. But the third thing is a micro portion of food. It's kind of what lies beneath, and it conditions, and what it conditions, it conditions physiology at all levels of physiology. We're going to unpackage that real quickly. And there are tens of thousands of molecules of nutrients that all combine to provide just-in-time inventory into our body. And so you think of it a different way. This is kind of an analogy of the iceberg. The macro is what you see. 20% of that iceberg resides above of the water, and that's the fueling and the building, the carbs, proteins, fats, the calories. But the majesty of whole food, the profound performance aspects of food when it comes to your physiology, it has no calories. And there are tens of thousands of these molecules. So in the 21st century, we understood vitamins and minerals, but as you well know, science discovers what's easy to discover first, right? Not necessarily what's most important. And now we know that there are tens of thousands of these molecules. So our physiology, right? If you think of our physiology as a spectrum, your physiology or anyone's physiology that you know, love, and care about, and you think of kind of the two bookends from poor physiology to peak physiology, right? And everything in between across that entire spectrum, the modern world, be it lifestyle and eating and stress and lack of sleep and all these sort of hardcore training, has a tendency to break the body bad. If you're living on the right side, you want to stay there. Maybe you're trying to heal and get more to the right, but any movement to the right is a left gain. Anything to the left is a kind of the body breaking bad. Now, how does a good cell stand and deliver or crash and burn? And that has to do with kind of that internal biochemistry of delivering physiological results on a daily basis and compounded over time. So if you look at that spectrum and you understand what the three components of what food does, it conditions us and it conditions physiological function. That's the no calorie portion of the conversation. And as I said, 20th century terms were vitamins and minerals, and now it is the majesty, sort of the plasma multicolored screen, right? And all of these molecules provide just-in-time inventory for our body to have a conditioning effect on our body. And every little yellow dot that you see here to the right is a level up, is an optimize, is a gain, is a daily result. And a lot of times it's an abstraction, right? You can't see it, touch it, taste it, feel it. Doesn't mean it's not going on. When I got on these plant powders, it took me about 18 months before I really began to manifest externally. I knew scientifically it was going and working on deep inside of me. And what I experienced was physiological recovery. I could recover fast. And when I talk about sort of the daily micro gains of this compounding effect of plant powders, right? It conditions anyone. It conditions anyone. And it delivers systemic advantages. And what do I mean by systemic? Network physiology, deep inside you kind of stuff. Now, there's a lot going on in this slide because there is a lot going on in your body across all aspects of lifestyle and humans, those you love, those you hate, a preacher, a pauper, a pro athlete, the greatest generation, the next generation, a type 2 diabetic, a type A personality. And what daily plant food support does across daily plant food shakes and our concentrates, our flagship, the fruit, vegetable, and berry powders here. And then over the last 5 years, who knew you could get 100% plant omegas, just plants, right? And this daily compounding effect is safe and it's clean. It's what we call Beyond Organic, which is a kind of a title or a heading for all of these features and benefits that consumers are looking for today. It's certified by a third-party organization. We have professional athletes using this. We have high-risk pregnancy moms using this. We have surviving, thriving cancer patients using this. It's safe, it's clean, it's pure, and it's just plants, and it's just food, and it gets in your body every day. So our lanes were best for the world in fruit, vegetable, and berry powders. Plant powder shakes. I've been using the shakes for over 20 years as well. And over the last 5 years, this was launched about 5 years ago, 100% plant omegas 3, 5, 6, 7, and 9. We take out the middle fish, much more sustainable way to get your oils. And that is the really the franchise of the Juice Plus company. And then on top of that, then the Tower Garden and I look at this as food innovation or food technology. And so how the company has built a competitive or a comparative advantage is they're a market maker in the acquisition of produce. They're one of the largest buyers of cranberries in the world, right behind Ocean Spray, one of the largest buyers of kale in the world. They're a market maker in the purchasing of all of this food, this produce. They freeze it on site. They take it to a juicing facility, kind of Vitamix juicing that eviscerates the hemicellulose and the cellulose. They dry it in a low temperature, oxygen-free, cold environment. You can see some fun videos of how it kind of looks like it's coming off on fruit leather. And then we quality control it, certify it, and then we blend it into these fruit, vegetable, and berry powders. We encapsulate it. What does the encapsulation do? Could you just take it as a scoop of the encapsulation? 3 things degrade food: time, heat, and oxygen. And that encapsulation gives it an oxygen barrier, prevents oxidative damage. It gets shipped out to people all over the world and you eat it. Pretty straightforward. I like to think of it as a food first approach. That's the way I view these plant powders versus a not food approach, and maybe kind of the categories within those is really the multivitamin, kind of is the poster child of molecules, a cocktail of molecules, and then plant powders. Plant powders are not a vitamin pill. Plant powders have tens of thousands of those molecules in that matter that matters. And so that's where this idea of functional food kicks in across all of these powders. It's not a vitamin pill just looking at it, but you know that there's tens of thousands of molecules inside of these plant powders, right? And so functional food may be a new term to you. The American Academy of Dietetics, which is a food-first organization, they have a position statement on it, and they say, look, it's a whole food, fortified food, enriched, enhanced food. It has beneficial. You're taking it for a reason, right? If consumed at levels, and it should have significant standards of rigorous scientific evidence and substantiation. And so some other functional food like teas and coffees, you're taking those for a reason, right? Those are functional beverages. Functional foods can be fermented foods, right? Functional foods, in our case, plant powders, that's where we're the best for the world, right? And so functional food as a kind of a new way to think about it, what Juice Plus is the most successful functional food in its category of plant powders. And it's been in that lane for coming on 30 years this year. Came out in the early 90s. Now, if you see here, the fruits that are juice dried and rendered into powders, the vegetables that are juiced and dried and rendered into powders, and then the berries that are juiced and dried and rendered into powders into our flagship. And so, I have the good fortune to work with professional athletes, elite athletes, Olympic champions, world champions, masters athletes, weekend warriors, all the way down to the college athletes and the high school athletes and the recreational athletes, and they're always looking for an advantage. And what I sort of introduce to them is, are you familiar with food conditioning with plant powders to condition systemic gains? And where I have experienced where athletes experience, or where fit people experience the benefits of these powders, is really in physiological durability. But who doesn't want more of that? It's restoration, it's rejuvenation, that recovery aspect to the human body delivers physiological durability. Who does not want more physiological durability? Whoever you are. And so, from a standpoint of human physiology, conditioning, it advantages inside of you, inside of anyone. I'm going to blast you through a high level of scientific investigation, scientific research done from institutions all over the world, looking into various aspects of human physiology. And these are institutions that have affiliated with the Juice Plus company, have done primary research on the plant powders. And 25 plus years later, there are over 40, I think it's more closer to 45 now, published studies. The supermajority of those are randomized, double-blind, placebo-controlled clinical studies, and published in peer-reviewed journals that speak the language of prove it. Okay, it speaks the language of replicated, scientific, rigorous investigation, and published in journals. And so, just at the highest level, you can certainly read any of these studies at PubMed, or we have links to them. You can get with the person that invited you here tonight. Our studies show we condition a healthier microbiome. Okay. We improve and condition the immune system and like that adaptive response, physiological durability. These plant powders condition immunity. These plant powders reduce inflammation. That is a performance advantage. If we can blunt that systemic inflammation or inflammatory response, that's a performance advantage if you play that out over the long game. Turns out we protect the telomeres, which are the green ends of DNA. These little plant powders have shown to protect the degradation of those telomeres, which are the tips, right? That is a performance advantage. Look, performance is pregnancy. Performance is better circulation for a diabetic. Performance can be recovery for an athlete. Performance can be genetic expression, turning the right buttons on and keeping the right ones on and the wrong ones off. And the body, if given the right biochemistry, can then genetically express in a healthy way. So our plant powders have been shown to improve that performance. Improvements in metabolic flexibility, right? Conditioning your body at a systemic level. Now look at this. Who doesn't want more cardiovascular or circulatory capacity? That gets down to the endothelium, which is a lining of your entire vascular system. And put another way, if you just look at the endothelium, which vessel do you want? The one on the left or the one on the right? The one that has the ability to vasodilate on demand and vasodilate and vasoconstrict and have plasticity. Turns out these plant powders help the endothelium perform. Now, this is another study. I'm not going to go into it much, but it's the protection of oxidized proteins when athletes are at anaerobic threshold, right? 7-month study. You can see the flat line here, the green dotted line. That basically showed that the plant powders blunt oxidative damage to your proteins in an anaerobic state. 30 minutes after, 30 minutes, and this is immediately after. Before you can see the graph, but it's a 7-month study, and that was very provocative, published in Medicine, Science, and Sports and Exercise, with athletes at 80% of VO2 max. That's when biochemistry gets a little wonky. These plant powders blunted or delivered performance in the protection of proteins. Brain performance. Who doesn't want more of that, right? I don't care who you are, right? My grandma, my daughter, my uncle, anyone, right? Cognitive process, selective, look, just executive level function, clarity. That is performance. So when it comes to the next generation, we have been involved in conditioning and building up the next generation. These are my daughters. When they got on Juice Plus, they were all little babies. One was in utero. But look, one of the greatest gifts we can give our children is the gift of health. Children being born today have a shorter life expectancy than their parents. It's monkey see, monkey do. We need to be gifting them with the habits of a great lifestyle. And, you know, when more kids are harmed by poor nutrition than by alcohol, drugs, and tobacco combined. We've been involved with the Children's Health Study, the Healthy Starts for Families program. It's a family rebate, 2-for-1, where you can get these plant powders for free for a child. If a parent buys it, moms love a deal, dads love a deal. It's a 2-for-1. But what these plant powders do in kids and in adults, I have a physician we work with. He actually acquired the taste for apples. Apples gave him the gag reflex before he started taking these plant powders. And a year later, he was eating apples. The conditioning, we've neutered our palates. We've anesthetized taste, training kids out of sugar, salt, and fat into the higher tastes of nutrient-dense foods. They begin to crave those foods. And what we know in this health study, this Healthy Starts for Family study, is once this intervention kicks in and families start consuming these plant powders, they begin to crave eating more fruits and vegetables. And we've put 4 million people through this study. We've collected data on those 4 million people. Half of those are kids, so 2 million kids, 2 million parents. When you can say 60% of that 4 million, so what's that? 2.4 million people are eating more fruits and vegetables. Almost 2/3 are visiting the doctor less. That's saving money right there. Over half are taking less prescription and OTC meds. That is performance at the kitchen level with families. And so I did mention our omega. This is just a visual representation of the plants that go into the omega 3, 5, 6, 7, and 9 blended into the powders. We squeeze these out. We squeeze these plants and out come these oils. And who knew, right? As I say, way more sustainable way to get healthy oils. And so I can go on, but if you just begin to stack all these up, I call this the performance stack. Physiologically, you want all of these things stacking on top of each other, right? And they deliver a compounding effect. And this is where physiological durability kicks in. It moves you beyond homeostasis to durable health, beyond durable health to fit physiology. And then if you want to stay on that right side, fit and peak physiology, whoever you are, it doesn't matter, right? And so here's who plant powders are for. And I'm just gonna be quiet for about 10 seconds, and I just want you to watch who they're for. This is a universal conversation because universally fruits and vegetables are the most important food group for the human species. And when it comes to winning physiology, putting this in your body every day over time conditions and delivers a compounding effect to the human body. I call it the game of gains, right? You're going to be held accountable by the rules of the game that you choose to play. And we're all athletes in the game of life. And when it comes to physiological results, optimizing your body, you got to put more nutrient dense foods, more nutrient dense matter into your body, whoever you are. And so across all levels, across all states, anywhere, all of this plant matter matters. As I say, this is the flagship offerings across shakes, across concentrates, and across the oils. And so please get with the person that invited you here this evening, reach out to them, get your question answered. But at the end of the day, get on the bike and start riding it. Give it a go. It's just plant matter. It's just food. It's just plants. We'll leave it there. God bless. We'll see you on the field of play.